streaming. Where else are we live streaming? I think that's all we're live streaming. What's up, Hitch? How we doing tonight?
Oh, pretty good, man. I missed you guys the last couple weeks, but I'm back and ready to rock.
Nice. Hold on, let me make sure we're live streaming the right way.
I just got
Did
the
your
text message.
you got
that
the
we're
old
live
dinger?
streaming.
You got the
Oh, yeah.
dinger?
Got the dinger.
Let's see. Hey, look at that. I love it. Well, I'm glad you're here tonight. What I wanted to do was get on here and do a little live pre-draft episode. I feel like with us drafting in the 28th spot, it's been a very quiet NFL draft season. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm so much busier than normal.
We're all busy, man, and the hype at 28 it just isn't going to be the same hype as it normally is at 10, 12, 3. It's a much different team, a much different outlook, a much different expectations, if you will, of this team. So it does change up a lot.
Hey, look at
Where's
that. We got a little we got someone that joined us in here.
really?
Yeah. Someone got the
Is
ring a
it
ding ding. I don't know who it is. The
is
icon's
it
too
Wayne?
small. Yeah, it
Probably Wayne.
probably is. Howdy there, partner. Hey, that's fun. I like this.
Yeah,
Um,
one for one.
it's funny that you say that because I was looking for some topics today to talk about, and drafting for luxury or drafting for need was the first one, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know what you want to call it. We're drafting for success. It's like we're
I
not
think
even like there's been some years where I would say if you're drafting for need, you're in the top 15 because you're that bad of a team that you desperately need a top 15 contributor. When you're on the back end, it's also not for luxury either because after last season, I don't think we'll ever take a position for granted. I don't ever think we're going to say, well, we're in a position where we're so deep at this position that we can risk everybody getting hurt and still winning. So I don't even know how to answer my own question.
Well, I think you did within the terminology there. A luxury, if you will, is being able to take the best player available. I think back to a couple episodes ago where Wayne said to me, if the best player available is a wide receiver, are you okay with that? And I think the answer is yes. This team has needs. I think what we've seen in free agency, besides for Reed and a couple other key pieces, is that Brad Holmes is not going to take depth for granted. He's not going to bank on Cat staying healthy. So he went out and he did what he needed to do, and he addressed some of our thinner positions. And now we're in a position where is it guard? Very likely. Is it edge? Again, very likely. Is it interior defensive line? Very well could be. So we're in this luxury position, if you will, to be able to draft for need, but also take best available. Very few teams find themselves in that position very often.
You're so wise. I knew you'd come up with a better answer than me.
Well, have you been doing any actual like looking into players? The pro days are done, I think. Um, the combine is long since completed.
I started to, and I kind of started falling in love with every defensive end that, because again, we talked about this, is drafting at 28 is a different mindset. How do you fall in love with somebody when you know that there are so many different scenarios people can fall back? So more I'm falling in love with a school or I'm falling in love with a position, not so much of a player.
Yeah, and I like to look, and I haven't really done it yet, but I like to look at like a pack of guys that I think could or should maybe be available in that range and familiarize myself with maybe a couple of guys out of each position group that we think they're going to target that are projected to go like 20 to 30 or bottom of the first round, and then you at least get to watch the draft and kind of have an idea of who some of these guys are. A little bit of that instant gratification when they make the pick to know who the kid is. You know, we've been talking about Kenny Grant a ton. Who's the big offensive lineman? Zane Grable, I think.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that is in our group chat, I mentioned Zane Grable about a month ago. He's from North Dakota State University.
Which you
And
gotta love right off the bat, right? When you're looking at a big offensive lineman from North Dakota State.
exactly. And that mock where I grabbed him from is for the Lions. It's from Walter Football. And the response was, who the hell is that, right? Because it's kind of one of those drafts where I'm not going to pretend to know every single one of these D tackles or offensive linemen. The quarterback draft this year is absolutely trash. There
But
isn't
teams
a
are still
wide
going to reach on him. Teams are still going to reach
100%.
on him, which then pushes talent down. We've talked about that. Teams are going to
Right.
take a running back or two before 28. Teams are going to take wide receivers and quarterbacks before 28. So it pushes talent down the board where all these national pundits are talking about this guy or that guy going 13th, this guy going top 5 for sure. But every time a team reaches for need, it pushes these guys down the board.
You're exactly right. So I went online and I started looking at outside of my usual mock drafts. Okay, who's historically accurate, right? And I start looking at where they have switched their strategy to as of yesterday, and I've noticed Shador Sanders going from top 5 all the way down to 21 with Pittsburgh. So you're starting to see some of these teams that just didn't make decisions in free agency kind of revealing itself in the draft. And now I'm starting to see some of these mocks that, again, are more historically accurate, pointing in the right direction of just what you said. We may have our option at, I don't want to say whomever, but you call him Kenny Grant. We got yelled at on TikTok for saying it. It's Kenneth Grant. I'm
They can
okay
yell
with
all they
Kenny.
want.
I'm okay with Kenny too.
Kenny G, baby.
Whatever. You know him. You've known him longer than anyone. But I just think it's one of those drafts, Hitch, where there's not a once in a generation offensive playmaker in this draft. So I think your typical, okay, well, these 5 guys clearly are going to go to the Raiders, the Chargers, right? Colston Loveland is like your big name, and he's a tight end out of Michigan, a team that barely throws the ball 20 yards down the field.
I also think if you were just simply looking at potential and pro day and game film and projection at this point, there's a couple running backs that could really be special, but they get hamstrung, no pun intended, by who drafts them and how do they use them, right? But I say if maybe optimistically, I would say maybe 2 running backs go before 28. That's fucking great for us, man. That is awesome. Just push the edges down the board, push the interior guys down the board, push the corners down the board, push them all down the board.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to be in that spot, like you said, where we're just going to have a pick of whoever we want. But I think we're going to be in a position where there's not going to be one dude where like, oh, we just have to take that guy. I can't believe he's there.
Exactly.
I think there's going to be 3 or 4 dudes across a couple different position sets here where we're going to be very pleased in any direction that they choose to go in.
I think that goes through each round, right? There is one round that I'm hoping that if they don't trade back into and double up on picks, I'm hoping, like I'm telling you, Savion Williams out of TCU is a really Brad Holmes-esque player. He's a dynamic running back, wide receiver. You want to talk about luxury? That would be the one where I'd say, okay, if we're going to go for anybody that I've kind of fallen in love with that I think is going to be a really outstanding pro, it's going to be Savion Williams. Outside of that, your strategy will run with that all day because I'm kind of eager to see how accurate we are, right? Your boy Kenny.
Sure.
Do 10 teams just swing on him because he's not going to sell jerseys and he's let's face it, these teams that are in the top 10 are garbage. right? Like the
For sure.
Giants are hot trash, Carolina's trash, the Jets are trash. There's no team in the top 10 where it's like, okay, that's a good market and they're just on a down year or two. It's like, no, these are complete terrible franchises.
And we're not in a position where we have to bank on them doing terrible franchise stuff, because the positions that we happen to need, on paper at least, are the positions that are very deep in this draft. But I think that we can count on some of these lesser successful teams, as per se, to do what we hope they're going to do, where they're going to reach.
Yeah.
Not to change the subject, but our friend who is sitting here with us on the live, he says it'll be a huge treat to see what Rocky Sin will do for the Detroit Lions. Is it going to be a treat? Is it going to be a rotten apple? I don't know, but Rocky Sin is in my notes. So is Maddox. They went out, and I don't know how in depth you and Wayne covered any of this, but they went out later in free agency, kind of like weeks ago I said they're not over. It's the free agency isn't over. There's still a lot of time left here, and they went out and they grabbed Rocky Sin, who was a second round draft pick, I believe, to the
Out of
Giants.
Alabama.
I think 6 or 7 years ago. He was a guy that I enjoyed watching over the years. He wasn't, a game changer. I think he's played on 4 different teams in 7 years. But to go out on, day 5 or 6, 7, whatever, second week of free agency, let's say, and grab a guy like Maddox and grab a guy like Rocky Sin, that just goes to show that Brad isn't going to get caught with his pants down.
No.
All of these, arguably almost all of these free agency signings have been quality depth, not just camp bodies. I know we're at 72 or 3 right now, and we're ultimately going to have to cut down to 52. But I don't see any of these guys that they brought in necessarily getting cut. Rocky Sin, albeit kind of hopping around and not as successful as his draft stock may have led everyone to believe, or his draft position, but could be a lot worse to have a 4th or 5th corner than Rocky Sin. And then if you look at Maddox coming fresh hot off a Super Bowl win.
Well, hold on. Let's stay on Rocky Sin, because I got a point I'd like to make about that. Because you're right. There was a lot of hype on him coming out of college, but look where he went. He went to Alabama, the school that we have the most players from on our roster. Is from Alabama.
This is true.
So you have guys that go to that school, and the reason why some of them don't transition so quickly or are so explosive is because of how well they were coached at Alabama. And we know the Nick Saban style of coaching is very Nick Saban. You can't just replicate that, right? It's an all intense, top to bottom, from starting with dinner with his wife to hosting a national championship. It's a culture. So
Sure.
Why are we not? I'm not saying that. Hold on. Why don't we look at it this way? We're going for guys that came from a very similar system where they were successful. So in a system where the culture was strong, top-notch leadership, everybody's there to win, they succeed. Now, if you ask him to go play for the Colts, which is what I think he did, maybe his first team, garbage organization.
I think he was drafted by the Colts or the Giants. I can't remember.
So you're asking him to come to 2 bad organizations and do kind of what we're expecting a Terry and Arnold to do, just because he came from Alabama. So that's just my point with Rocky Sin. Maddox, he's a Detroit native, dude. I think he went to King.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he's coming off of a Super Bowl championship Eagles roster where he played in all 20 or 21 games. And not hard to look it up, but I believe that he allowed about a 50 or 51% completion rate. That's including playoffs, right? That's including the Super Bowl. So a guy that we're asking to come in again for depth.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Gotta win a goddamn game first before we talk about playoffs.
You got the Jim Irsay. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, we bring this guy in after having a pretty successful year where he was a big contributor on a real good team that won a championship. He's coming in with a little bit of a swagger or hubris, and he played. He played in every damn game and allowed a 50% completion across the board, including the playoffs. So This is a guy that was signed late in free agency, just like Rocky Ya-Sin, who really could bring something to the table. Not only did he play and contribute in 21 games, but what can we then extrapolate out of this? He stayed healthy for 21 games,
Yep.
right? So all these people freaking out that we weren't spending huge money on the first day or two of free agency, just calm down, man. Calm down. We got a lot of draft picks. We brought in a lot of depth. We brought in a quality starter in Reed. Let's just see what happens. I think we're okay. I think we're sitting there all right. And free agency's still open, right? Now I'm seeing articles about Zadarius Smith maybe wanting to come back on a discount. And who said that weeks and weeks and weeks ago? We did. I'm not saying we're the only ones that said that. I'm not saying we know anything that other people don't, but let them test the waters. Let them see that the grass isn't always greener, and what that equates to is saving money.
Well, he posted on his Instagram a championship ring he had already made up for himself with 99 on it, almost to the point of making it saying, like, listen, irregardless, I'm coming back. So I think it, and I'm not just saying this because we said it, but it's kind of one of that Tim Patrick situation where it's like, yeah, I want to sign with the Lions. Just sign me with the Lions. And why do they have to sign him right now, right? If he's going to sit here and sign with you guys and you go out and you say, yeah, after the draft, we'll come grab you at $5 million for 1 year. Yeah, cool. No big deal, right? Like, he's a 33-year-old pass rusher. He's north of 30. Those are the guys that usually get signed after the draft, no matter what. I mean, unless you're going to go pay for a Stephon Diggs, which I still can't believe the Patriots are now that team. That just blows my mind.
They are. And they have been in the past. They did the Randy Moss thing. They've always had like one decent receiver to fall back on, but he was always a product of the draft or a product of under the radar trade for some guy that we thought was a no name that turns into, Wes Welker. But
well, they're turning into a team that's spending a lot of money in free agency. And
true.
I don't know if it was you and I or Wayne and I that went over that, where it was like $300 to $400 million that they spent just this year. So, anyways, we're getting off topic. But
well, we got Doc here on the live chat. He's saying, hey fellas, Hitch and Blue, we're getting closer. Again, happy accident. I'm still planning on rocking something special, but I'll know when the time is right. Doc also says, spoke to a Lions buddy of mine today. His top priority is edge or O-line. Yeah, Doc, I think we're all right there, but let's not settle, or let's not marry to that idea of edge or bust, O-line or bust. Just to echo back what Mark and I have been saying for a while here, we are in a bit of a spot where we will get, I believe, a quality player. And when guys push down, the quality of that player gets a little better. But you're right, Doc. O-line second, probably D-line first and foremost. I think your buddy's right. I think that's what we've been saying. But don't rule out safety. Don't rule out wide receiver. Don't rule out, I think where we're thinking now is guard. Don't rule out tackle/center or center/guard. Don't rule
a position
that
I really truly think that we're going to put a little extra emphasis on this year. We got Christian last year to fill the right guard spot. With Glasgow going over to left guard, I truly think that Brad's fallen in love with a late round tackle that I think you're going to see is going to be a cornerstone of this offensive line moving forward. We
do know that Brad likes to draft developmental players as well. Wayne touched on that with the guy from BC. I would argue that Martin was a development type player. Kind of wish that we had that one back, especially with what went on our interior line with injuries. But Brad likes to draft developmental guys. Let's hope that he does it in the 5th, 6th, and 7th, not the 3rd. But hey, nobody's perfect. Oh, turn on the disco ball.
I don't know. You want me to get wild?
Get a little weird. We're on live.
Get a little weird. We are live. This is ultra blue. I think I'm going to stick with this. The light was too bright. It's weird.
Yep.
Last time I did this with Levati, he told me to use that setting, so I will blame him for that.
Asshole.
That's why he's not coming back. We're making sure he stays in Colorado. I've done everything I can to keep him landlocked there for at least another 10 years.
Good. Keep him there.
Yeah.
4081,
Hey, speaking of Levati, we got Levati Outdoors. I hear he reached out to me. They're doing some business around my neighborhood.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I've been contracting with them this is our second full year, I think, and I've handed them a ton of properties, and they do great work, man. So they don't sponsor us. We're not plugging them just to plug them. Because of our Levati familiarity, it's germane, and the Levati Outdoor Services does a bang-up job.
I do have to make a disclaimer, though. I do have stock in the Levati family, so there may be a conflict of interest, but yeah.
That stock pays
Philly.
dividends, man. They're good people to know.
Yeah, dividends and cheese. But so tell me right now, because I need to get you back to getting fired up. Who in this draft, in this first round, do you want to just absolutely punch in the face? Who is yours?
Who do I hate?
Yeah, who do you hate?
I think, like most of the country and probably 29 other teams, it's Sanders. You see mock drafts with him going as high as first, second, third. You see mock drafts with him going, what did you say, 20, 21, 22?
21 to the Steelers.
And then when you look at, I know you can't put a lot of stock into the overall like top 100 because they place a great premium on positional value. Some teams, most teams, but I've seen him as low as like 50 on the top 100. Right?
Yeah.
I think he's arrogant. I think he's an asshole. I think that he would be very well suited for a big city team, a New York, either one of the New Yorks. I don't see him fitting into a team like what we have here. Now, I'm not just speaking of quarterback needy teams, but I don't see him fitting into a Baltimore, a Buffalo, a Detroit.
No, not a disciplined team. He's going to have way too much baggage.
Yeah. And
it's going to be a Russell Wilson where he's got to have his own meditation room and his own parking spot with his face on the parking spot.
Russell Wilson had a private locker room. It took him 2 years to throw as many touchdowns as he has bathrooms in his mansion, man. He is over the hill and far away. He's done.
Why did they pay him $21 million and they say he's going to compete for a spot? Like, what about that guy is worth $21 million when you're hot garbage? I don't get that.
That's the going rate, man. This is where we're at in the NFL. That's the going rate. I think
you'd rather have a Russell Wilson for $21 million than a Tim Boyle for 8, 10.
When my other quarterback is Jameis Winston, then maybe. But I'm glad that we're not in that position. Right?
I know. Yeah, no, it's a long ways from being in that position. I guess thank God or thank Brad Holmes. Actually, thank Sheila Hampford. I've been trying to make some memes of like your face with Sheila in like a bathtub. Because seriously, man, that lady is where it started. I mean,
yeah,
she's kind of cool. Her vibe. She's not over the top. You wouldn't know she's worth billions. Her mom was very kind of like old school badass, right?
Yeah, I feel like her mom was like rocking out the mint juleps and like wrestling sturgeons and stuff during Prohibition. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what she was doing. And she kind of has that kind of, even though she didn't grow up blue collar, but she has that kind of that arm wrestling in a bar after hours mentality. Like she'll throw a chaw in with you.
The only thing that Sheila continues to get behind is Rod Wood. I don't think that we're at the point where Rod Wood can really hurt us, but what does she see in Rod Wood? I mean, why is he one of the holdovers from the?
He's a hang around.
He is. He's just a hang around guy, a hold me back kind of guy. Maybe I don't know.
He's got
But
something on somebody in that organization.
a Russian PP tape.
Maybe when William Clay Ford died on his deathbed, he said, "You got to promise me you'll never get rid of Rod Wood."
I don't know, man, but there's something there. I don't know why he's the holdover, right? It just makes no sense.
You're right, though. He's not hurting us, and I think maybe in his position previously, they overextended his function and asked him to do things he probably wasn't good at doing. Now that he's doing Rod things, just let Rod be Rod.
Yeah, during the dysfunctional era, if you will, I think that they relied on him to make football decisions. Now it seems like he's making business decisions, and I mean, we all own a little bit of Ford stock, and we can't say that it's been worth much, but I trust Rod to make business decisions. I don't trust him to weigh in on football decisions.
Well, whoever's in charge of the branding has just done an awesome job, because from Lions gear going from like absolutely something they were giving away to something we've talked all last season about the cost, and a lot of the shit does look really cool, man. Like it's some pretty cool Lion stuff. We were at basketball last night at AAU tryouts, and kids just wearing casual Lion shirts to a basketball practice. Like you would have never saw that back then.
Mean, look behind you. It's all grit, right? They have a phrase that is marketable. What could they market before, right? Get your shovel, or the bar is high, or whatever.
SOL.
Nothing. Yeah, SOL.
That was all
Detroit,
you could market.
Detroit versus everybody arguably was the only thing that made any commercial sense. Even though I hate that shit, but
that was made by two local guys. I don't know if you know the story. I saw it on accident. So at least it's a local campaign that took off.
Yeah, that's cool. I hope that those dudes made some dough. I'm sure they did, but I still think that it's a very egocentric type thing. It's a scapegoating type phrase, I think. If you want to say Detroit versus everybody, you might as well just made a T-shirt that says inept management, right?
Yeah.
Nobody was
How
out
about
to get
Detroit versus biting kneecaps? You're too worse.
Right, I hate that shit too, man. But I mean, it's better than get your shovel. It's better than the bar is high, because at that point the bar couldn't have been set any lower, right?
No, that's true.
It's better than taking. If you can find me a T-shirt with the Detroit Lion logo on it that says "Take the Wind," that might be the first apparel that I'll don on this show. I mean, there's
Take the wind.
Yeah, Marty Morningwig taking the wind in overtime, right? It was just a story of blunder after blunder after blunder, but now it's all grit. It's biting kneecaps. It's dragging them to the deep and drown their ass. It's easier to market. And we're fucking winning.
Well, there you go. There you just said it. And we're winning. I mean, you can only have a cool press conference by your head coach that takes you for so long until you actually have to see some results, right? So,
right.
I mean, there's results, and you're going to the store now and you're looking at jerseys going, which one do I want to grab? As for the last 50 years, you're going, oh, they don't have Barry Sanders. Well, I'm out of here.
They don't have Barry. They don't have Herman Moore. They don't have, that's all we had for a long, long time.
Calvin was a good jersey, but again, everybody had a Calvin or Stafford jersey. It almost kind of highlighted at some point inept fans, because if you were around long enough, you almost felt bad for Calvin. You just was like,
playing so beat up and losing so many games in spite of what he was capable of doing. I mean, who's surprised that he retired when he did? I wasn't.
No, neither was I. I mean, I'm just glad we seem to be moving away from that era. I mean, clearly Calvin and Barry and everyone's in good graces, and I think they even dug up Henry Ford's body and have him on display inside Ford Field right now.
Talk about early retirement like Barry and like Calvin. I want to bring something up that I actually have in my notes here, and by no mean is this player of the same ilk of any Hall of Famer, but one of my personal favorites, who I viewed as a team leader, who I viewed as a positive presence, who was productive till he was hurt all of last year, is John Kaminsky. And did you hear that John Kaminsky retired?
He retired?
John Kaminsky retired due to injury after, I believe, only 6 or maybe 7 years. And this was a guy that I was really looking forward to getting back on the defensive line. A versatile guy that could play edge effectively, that could play interior over the guards effectively. I was sad to see him go, which brings me to that point of, is there another move coming on the defensive line? Does it force us to zero in a little bit more, not just on interior, but on defensive line when somebody like that, and maybe they knew. I mean, we're not in the know. We have no idea. Maybe they knew that this was coming since last year. Who knows? But
Well, he missed the entire season last year, so I
did,
would like
he's
to
also
think
only 29, I think.
he is only 29, but you'd like to think that if they have a guy like that missed the entire season and he comes to them at some point and says, guys, this is probably my best shot. And in all these sports, when they announce it, when they declare it, when they sign the paperwork, can make or break 5 to 10 million. So I wouldn't get too caught up in that, but yeah, I think this is where the answer is always going to be yes when it comes to the defensive line after last year. I don't care if John Kaminsky signed a 10-year deal and said he's coming back. I'd still say keep stocking up.
He was. My point is, he was a guy that I didn't necessarily think was going to retire at 29, and unless they knew something that we didn't, which I'm sure they probably did, he was a guy that I was looking forward to having in the locker room and having available to us as a healthy member of the 52-man roster. And when I saw that headline yesterday, I can't say that I was shocked, but I was surprised. I was disappointed. I don't necessarily know if that will affect what they do in the draft, but it could affect who else they bring in the waning hours or the waning days of free agency.
That is true. And we got to think, too, there are, like you said, there's just still so many guys out there that completely forget about.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's guys on this roster that
we are
that solid contributors. That we have never mentioned.
There's that we completely have never mentioned, honestly, because we've been just so beat up and depleted. Yeah,
Yep.
Mick Skeeter reminded us that we're getting Hutchinson back too, which I don't know.
we are.
Like we've all been really quiet about Hutch. I don't know. Are you afraid almost to see him out there the first couple times, or are you excited?
I'm certainly excited to have him back, but the best way that I can state or quantify the way that I'm feeling about the return of Hutch is cautiously optimistic. I don't want them to rush him back. If I think he's probably trending towards playing game one. I haven't heard that he isn't, but I also don't want them to rush him back. You have to look, of course, you have to look at the big picture of the next maybe 10 years of this kid's life. Hopefully as a Detroit Lion, even though game by game it's so valuable to win each game, you have to look at the larger picture with Hutchinson, and I think that's what they're doing. I have no reason to think that's not it. I mean, I read today that McNeil might not be ready to rock for a little while after the start of the season, and that's unfortunate, but that's okay. Don't rush him back. Just don't rush anybody back. Get healthy and draft in the late rounds for depth. Do what you're doing in free agency, bringing in quality depth pieces, and we don't have to worry as much about McNeil maybe missing a game or two, or Hutchinson maybe missing a game or two. Unfortunate, and they give us the best chance to win, but don't rush them back.
If the Lions draft Kenneth Grant, are you going to buy a jersey?
Nope, not yet.
Damn. That's a Hitch note. That's a Hitch note.
That's a hard no.
That's a hard no. I know that sound.
I might eventually, but let's see what happens here. I'm scoring on jerseys. If I was a jersey guy, I would have no problem with a Barry Sanders, with a Kelvin Johnson. I'd be in camp for Gibbs. I might even look at a Laporta or a Hutch, but
don't say that. You want somebody obscure. You want somebody special, somebody that I think the way you're the type of guy is, okay, if I'm sitting down at a diner You know, are you the type of guy that's going to buy me a cup of coffee? Or are you the type of guy that's going to walk away? That's how you buy your jerseys. I think it's that personal with you.
True that. I mean, I do like the obscure jerseys. I am not a jersey guy. This has been established, but over the years, the only jerseys that I've ever really owned, the only one I still have is a Mickey Redmond jersey. Jerseys should be conversation pieces. They shouldn't be
See?
game time attire.
So who would you on the Lions team sit down with and have breakfast with at a diner? At Monty's.
John Kaminsky.
See, I knew it, dude. We got to get you a Kaminsky jersey.
It's retro now, right? Once they're retired, it's retro.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. I'm going to comb the internet, every Chinese website I can find for a John Kaminsky jersey.
I'm a big fan of long snappers. I'm a big fan of special team gunners.
Don Mullenbach.
Big fan of fullbacks, right? Especially a fullback / tight end / running back. I mean, that's my kind of guy.
That is your kind of guy who contributes only on special teams.
Special teams is the third aspect of the game that is so frequently overlooked, especially at the lower levels. But you can't win a game without solid special teams. How many Super Bowls, calling out Wayne here, how many Super Bowls did the Bills lose by missed field goals?
Yeah, and how many did the Patriots win by Vinatieri? And the Colts won with a Vinatieri. He won, I think, 2 Super Bowls.
The Rams, the first one, I think, against the Rams, I believe it was a big field goal. You know, how many games did the Bears win because of Devin Hester? Not catching passes, but returning punts and kicks. How many games?
He's in the Hall of Fame just for that.
Right. Right. I mean, think back to Lions folklore. We've always had fairly decent special teamers. You had Eddie Drummond returning kicks.
Oh, you just took Eddie Drummond out of my mind. Dude, I loved Eddie Drummond. He wore 18, which is
I rock a Drummond jersey.
Oh, okay, so I can find you an Eddie Drummond jersey.
Yeah, but, you know, we've been spoiled in a sense. It's hard to say that Lions fans have ever been spoiled until the last couple of years, but we had Hansen and Jet. For 2 back-to-back eras, we had Jack Fox, and before him, Sam
Martin.
Sam Martin, who went on to get a big free agent contract, I believe, in Denver. These guys are still in the league. We lose a guy like Jason Hansen. I shouldn't say lose. A guy like Jason Hansen decides to retire after 200 years as a Lion, and who do we bring in? Matt Prater. Who drills 60-yard field goals? Matt Prater. You can't sleep on special teams, and that's part of the reason that I love the later half of the draft. I love the later half of the draft where you're getting guys like
you know, a big special teams disappointment was Jake Moody. I really thought he was going to be an ace in the pros, and I think he got caught by San Francisco.
Sad special teams and maybe even rotational starter Zach Follett. I would rock a Zach Follett jersey all day long. That guy would lay people out.
Forgot about Zach Follett.
Teams. Right?
Kind of like a WWE wrestler, tackler. Big time.
Just a madman. He's a madman. He's the guy wearing half shirts, no sleeves, eye black everywhere, and just fucking people up from Pop Warner to NFL.
So there is a good point in the chat about crop tops. Would you wear a crop top jersey?
I mean, who wouldn't?
Okay, I'm just making sure it's the same person.
I don't know if
AI is so good nowadays. I didn't know if I was talking to you or AI.
It's 52 degrees in here right now, so I don't know if I would do it now. But if you really needed me to, I would.
And then there's just little Velcro things for the nipples where it just peels off.
Just blazing nips. I had my mesh practice jersey. My nips used to blaze out of my mesh practice jersey. They're
you didn't
always
tape them down like Andy Bernard.
Nah. No, I wasn't running marathons.
You weren't worried about chafing?
No, I barely played. I wasn't worried about chafing.
Did you guys ever do that before football games? Eat a lot of Alfredo?
Carb loading is a very real thing.
Carb loading?
I would carb load before hockey games and before football games, but never.
Are you
with
still
that
carb loading?
Yes. You don't look this good at 40 without carb loading. I carb load with the hot and readies now, but yeah, dude, it used to be a thing. Why do you think the boosters always held spaghetti dinners night before football games, right? You have to carb load.
I just thought it was cheap. It's like pasta's a couple bucks. The sauce is cheap, and it's just you put a bunch of burger in there, and it's like feeding cattle. That's what I
It is
thought.
easy. It is easy to make a ton of it, but carb loading is a very real thing. You just want to avoid the garlic and the cream sauce.
See, I would have thought the cream sauce would have added a little bit more to your pump, but
To the pump.
to the
It
pump.
adds flavor. It definitely
bet
adds
it does.
flavor, but it doesn't help you with your stamina. Maybe your pump, but not your stamina.
Well, speaking of flavor, are you going to be? You mentioned going to Bob's for the draft. Are you going to be eating anything special? Is there a special draft? I'll give you an example. Well, actually, tell me yours first, and then I'll tell you mine.
Let me think how to answer this. Yes, we will be eating something special. Made legal a couple of years ago, if you catch my drift.
Is there a
Made,
special dish you eat of food?
Oh, buffalo chicken dip is a favorite. We'll get some pizza. I also want to point out that I've switched to a Canadian
Wow,
for our homie that isn't here.
that's just because you ran out of rocks and someone left that at your house.
Oh, I got rocks. I just can't reach them without getting up.
Who would have brought Molson to your house? Is that an Eric?
That's definitely an Eric.
Okay, see, I know these.
Definitely an Eric.
I know some trends. Okay.
Yeah. It's also the
Well-
go-to beer. I've been fortunate to go to a lot of Wings games this year, relatively, and it's the go-to beer at LCA for a hockey game. You got to have a Molson.
Yeah, Bob's a big Molson guy. Well, Sage is a huge Molson guy. He'd
Nice.
come over with like a 6-pack of Molson and watch a Wings game. That's funny. Maybe that's why. You're just programmed to do that.
It's a Canadian thing, right?
See, no, it's an East Side thing. It really is. Like, I know we talked about this, but that's like a South Windsor or South Detroit thing, right? Like,
South Windsor. Yeah.
it's one of those things where something we do and something they do pretty similar. And Wayne pretends to be from Toronto.
These are questions for Wayne, but I feel like if you're a Canadian, you just straight up drink Labatt or Labatt Light, right?
No, not at all.
No?
No, that's from no. You remember when we went over there? They had the Rutgers Red, and they had what was another one? There was like 4 or 5 different basic ones that weren't your standard. I think what I gather is Labatt is kind of like a if you go to Australia and you ask for
A Foster's.
yeah, there you go. It's kind of cheesy, right? Like, I don't know if somebody came over here overseas, what's an American beer? Budweiser? Is that the first beer you're going to tell
Right.
them to have when they come over here, though?
But are you going to laugh at them when they order a Budweiser? I think not. But when you go to
No.
Canada, maybe get a Labatt's, or go to Australia, ask for a Foster's, they're going to be like, oh, you're an American.
You couldn't tell by my accent or lack
Right.
thereof.
I'll tell you, after
That'll tell you I'm an
after
American.
spending a little bit of time in Australia a long time ago, the beers to drink there, or the beer to drink there, is called, I believe it's called Victorian Bitter. And there was
Okay.
a beer in Fiji, which is a common stopover for Americans traveling to Australia. There was a beer that I really liked called Fiji Bitter. And
Fiji Bitter.
those are what the locals drink, and you absolutely cannot buy it here. I mean, you could probably order it or go to a specialty shop and ask them to get it, but the Victorian Bitter and the Fiji Bitter hold a spot in my heart.
Well,
for
the
my
doc
world
brings up a
travels.
good point. What about a PBR? Kind of overlooked that. I know in our 20s
PBR's
we drank a
solid
lot of
American
that.
beer. Well, in our 20s, I drank whatever anybody brought to the party, right?
That's true. You know, I remember
I don't
that-
buy PBR as a adult, but excuse me, I don't buy PBR as an adult, but I know a lot of people that do. It's probably a pretty solid beer.
Oh, that's a beer that the hipsters took from a $2.50 can beer to you. I ordered it actually in Nashville, thinking it would be the cheap beer, and it was the $8.50 beer. I'm thinking to myself, this is ridiculous.
It is. The hipsters have taken a lot of things and propped them up. I mean, they made vinyl cool again. They made various styles of headwear to cool again. Overalls, I think, are coming back. But when you look at what they did to beer, they didn't help us.
No, it just drives the cost up. Drives the cost every time a
Yep.
hipster gets into something. It drives the cost right up. They automatically inflate it with their bullshit. I've always said
Well, the
the good
hipsters
way
had
to clean out and spray for hipsters is just litter job applications all over the place. We'll go a run in.
well the hipsters I don't think had anything to do with the increase to Detroit Lion ticket prices. That was
No, that
disappointing and
was
continues to be. So
that would be your yuppie, I guess. Is that even still a word?
yeah, it's the fair weather fans, it's the soccer moms, it's becoming the thing to do, the place to take selfies. Um, it's not a place to go to really
It's like the
watch a game
Chicago
anymore.
Bean, where everybody used to take selfies. It used to drive me nuts. Every white girl would go to Chicago and take a picture in front of that stupid mirror. Like, just I one time want to see them taking a selfie of them and someone just in the mirror just getting punched like, instant right before impact. I feel
Oh,
like
my
that's
daughter, my daughter, my nieces, and my sister-in-law just got back from Chicago, and the Bean was one of the stops, man. And
had
I
to.
mean, I get it.
It's the thing.
I've been there, and it was underwhelming to me, but these kids had a blast.
Oh,
They
of
loved it.
course. Of course. I get it. It's just, again, something that is fun and innocent that your average white woman just takes and blows up. The Stanley mugs. Um, I mean, they're probably really
Yeah.
good mugs, but they're $10
Oh, they're
overpriced
great
because of
mugs.
white women.
Yeah. I had one for years until my wife stole it and then ordered seven more and put dishwasher safe stickers all over them and bought replaceable straws. And I
See,
mean, it just becomes a thing.
you give them voting rights, and all of a sudden they just go way out of hand with things.
No comment.
So, what inspired you
Oh
to wear a
boy.
little Detroit Tiger action?
Oh, this is just kind of my go-to jacket for this time of year, not just opening day. It's just a nice warm jacket. My father-in-law, rest in peace, bought me this jacket for a birthday, I think when I was maybe turning 30.
But it
So
does say
this
that
has
doesn't look like
been
something you would have spent money on.
no, absolutely not. I cherish it because it's a Bob jacket, and my father-in-law gave it to me, and it's practical, and I wear it all the time. But I would have never spent the, I don't know, $139 on this.
Yeah, those are nice jackets.
Yeah, but this jacket's 10 years old. I've rocked this for a decade, and it's a nice jacket.
Well, I don't know if you paid attention or caught the game last night. I caught the very first inning. It was a late 9:40 game against the Mariners, but dude, they put on a parade, a parade of balls just flying out of there, man. Um, I I have to say that this might be the year that I get a little bit more back into baseball, a little bit more interested. It's a young team, a lot of prospects. I did not realize how good our farm system was or is. Like top five in
Yeah,
baseball.
farm system's legit and has been for the minute, and you could say the same thing for the Red Wings. I I hope that what we've seen out of this opening series and series to come is legit. I hope that they're fun to watch, and I hope that they win games, of course. But it's a little unnerving to me that they have guys playing out of position. You've had how long to solidify your corners? You drafted what you thought to be a solidified, bona fide first baseman um, in
Yeah.
Torkelson. Now you got him in the outfield. He's DH'd. He spent a lot of time in Toledo. You got guys playing outfield that have never played outfield before. I don't think that they went into this season completely like unprepared, ignoring their needs, but I think that they got sold out on a couple of free agents that they really thought were coming, and they got caught with their pants down a little bit. So let's see what happens over a long season with guys playing out of position. But
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited every year for baseball, and I'll watch a lot of baseball. Hockey's ending, football's over, so I'm going to watch a lot of baseball. But let's hope they can sustain what we've seen here. Offensively with the pitching too. The pitching's going to carry them, and we all knew that. But let's hope that that they win a bunch of games.
I agree, and I think in the chat it's brought up. A lot of people love watching baseball in person over watching it on TV. I'm not gonna lie, I grew up playing baseball, so I'll watch Tigers really. Now, when I was in college in the early 2000s and I had the time, that's all I did was watch baseball, endless baseball. I hate to sound like an old man, but I also feel like baseball in general has lost its edge. I think we're waiting for somebody really to come in and make the sport exciting again. Ken Griffey Jr., somebody that the kids can get behind.
I mean, it's hard to see the sun through the storm or whatever the fuck people say, because you got a lot of good baseball players. I mean, you got Ohtani. You got some guys really doing some special things, but the magic hasn't happened in Detroit for quite a while. And when I say magic, I mean deep playoff runs and Hall of Fame players on the roster, because we had a very special season last year. Statistically, we did something that was almost fucking impossible. I'm not looking for that to happen again. But baseball as a whole, as a product, I think is in an okay spot. But Tigers with this #1 farm system, just like the Red Wings with this established farm system, you got to see it come to fruition. You got to see these guys come up and make the club and stay with the club and make plays with the club. So I think baseball is in an okay spot, but Tigers, it's hard to look past what we have going on here in Detroit.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have these names. You have Ohtani. You have Ronald Acuna. You have lots of guys that get paid a lot of big money. But there is nobody that has stolen the hearts of America, right? There's nobody that's pulling people in that are non-baseball fans and saying, oh, I got to watch it because of this, right? The NFL always had Tom Brady. They've got Patrick Mahomes. I don't have to name all the guys to you, but there's nobody in baseball that can do that for the MLB.
Well, and potentially we've been spoiled too, because we got to see a Triple Crown season out of Cabrera. We just had a Cy Young winner, right? And for years, even less the Cy Youngs and less the championships that we had the potential to win. But, Scherzer, Verlander, Porcello, God, who else am I forgetting on the same roster? There was a decade where we had the best pitching staff in baseball.
Yeah, David
Price.
David Price. There you go.
Yep.
You said Porcello, yeah.
Rick Porcello.
Jesus, don't make me forget. I mean,
Galarraga get robbed of his perfect game. I mean, we had a staff. We had a World Series pitching staff. We had relievers. We had closers. We had the best bat in baseball. We didn't do much with it. Which again brings me back to my point, is there's some good stuff going on in baseball, but it's just a little bit of fatigue I'm still feeling from the games that they won and how close they got and the magic moments that we had here with very little to show for it.
Well, and those magic moments, I mean, it's a long season, right? So you're really going to have to keep shuffling the deck all season to keep, I think, the average fan interested in this Tigers team. I mean, there's going to be a lull moment right before the All-Star break, but I don't know. We'll see. It'll definitely give us something to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun time to be a Detroit sports fan. Albeit the Red Wings getting kind of hard to watch, but still in playoff contention. We'll see what happens in the next couple of days.
Listen, I know you hate basketball.
I was going to say the Pistons are something to watch right now.
I'm telling you, dude.
From worst ever NBA team, I think, to 4th seed.
It is absolutely phenomenal to see that come through. You had so much promise, and you don't really get a lot of these top draft picks in the NBA really work out. We got Cade Cunningham. Cade's special. And I was really worried that we were going to ruin that. And
Cade is finally special. Cade is finally what we thought Cade was going to be, right?
Yes.
How
Yes,
many
he
triple
is.
doubles has that guy had a year? Every time I get a text message, just Cade putting up points. You know?
Oh, it's phenomenal, but he's never really had that dog in him, that fight in him, right? And that comes from the coaching. So JD Bickerstaff has done a phenomenal job. I mean, he just got into a fucking 7-man brawl with the guys a
Yeah.
couple days ago. Jason come running downstairs. He's like, "You gotta see it. They're fighting. They're fighting." You know, but that's the stuff I'm saying that is not in baseball. I'm not saying the fighting, but there's just the not excitement. And
I
yeah,
feel
let's talk about disappointment because they freaking changed the sign at Comerica Park. Like they're watering things down almost there.
Yeah, that one made no sense to me. Like there was no need to do it. I guess
No,
it's not like they had a big ass stadium upgrade or
no,
whatever. It was just kind of we've all played the video games and we've all seen the Ford commercials or whatever. Like that's kind of part of the allure, kind of part of the marketing. I don't know. I guess I'm not losing any sleep over it, but I don't know why they did it.
that's what I'm saying. It's a weird move. It's almost like a signal that they're giving you. They're tipping their cap that they're about to do something. I
What, are they
mean,
gonna move? Are they gonna change their name? Like I just
no.
don't get it.
The only way I could see anything happening is the Illich selling the Tigers, but I don't ever see that happening.
a
But
real a real major league scenario, right? We'll
yeah,
see. We'll see.
yeah,
But
a real that would be pretty awesome.
back to
Chris Illich in a Speedo in the locker room, and they're removing clothes off of him to win games, and he's
right.
smoking his
Back
long cigarette up in the owner's box.
back to Pistons turning it on, right?
Yeah,
Back to Tigers baseball and what we once had. I firmly believe that if you draft a guy that's on the cusp of like developmental but able, like in a sport like baseball and talking about pitching where you can be one of five, we saw Tayshaun Prince. I'm sorry, I always say Tayshaun Prince. What's his fucking name? The
there
guy.
is a Tayshaun Prince.
I know the guy that's just nailing triple doubles. This is how little I watch basketball. Our first
Cade
overall pick,
Cunningham.
Cade Cunningham.
Okay.
You got a guy like Cade Cunningham that was drafted with a lot of hope and took a couple years to come into his own. And it reminds me of Rick Porcello. Rick Porcello had a year where he was a serviceable number 4, number 5, a lot of potential. And then we came back to a fresh new start of a season, and he had his season where he went from a boy to a man.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
I'm just talking about like his 5 o'clock shadow and his features, and he
His
grew.
stature.
Yes, he
Yep.
he had some gravitas and some command that he didn't have before, and I feel like that's what we're seeing now in Cade.
Yeah, he's got the cojones now.
He leveled up. He
Yeah.
leveled up.
And it's funny. I was looking for images last week for the graphic for the icon, and I searched Cade Cunningham, and I found a cool one. But then I got closer, and I realized it was from his rookie year. And you're right. I didn't realize how like a little boy he looked. Just in the
Yeah.
facial features, he just looks very tiny. Like he's still developing because he is. I mean, they're
Right.
spending
On
one
every level.
year in college.
Right. They're developing on every level, and we
Yeah.
forget that these guys are kids when we draft them.
And then
They're
Jalen Duran, he's 19 and he looks like he's 45 and someone's uncle.
You always have your outliers. Remember when we drafted the D tackle Robinson, and he just looked like Mr. T. He was
Yeah.
20, 21 years old and looked like something right out of blaxploitation of the 70s. He just looked like a fucking man at 20 years old. But
That was
we
like Rick
drafted these
Mahorn. I feel
guys-
like Rick Mahorn came out of the womb looking like he was 52 with a mustache, punching
Agreed.
people.
Agreed.
And I love Rick
Yeah.
Mahorn. But yeah, he's always
Agreed.
looked like a badass, old school.
Yeah, Bill Lambier never looked like a 20-year-old.
No.
Right? So you have these guys that are just built different, and then you have these guys that develop, and you are there to see the turning point, right? And it's
Yeah.
not like that necessarily in football, because in football, if you're real fast, you make plays. In football, if you're real shifty or real heavy, you make impact. But in these sports where there's 5 men on the floor, or it's you as a pitcher against the entire lineup, it's more polarizing, and they make these steps that are real fun to watch.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, and there's really some opportunity too, and especially baseball where you have a lot of Cinderella stories and basketball too, because a lot of these guys, man, if you look back at where, um, take your favorite '04 Pistons team, take your '89 Pistons team, look at where some of these players were drafted and where we picked up on, and not everybody is a first and a second. If anything, in baseball and basketball, your first couple of rounds are guaranteed to be misses. Like, you
Well,
might as well just give the first round up.
basketball, if you don't win the lottery and get number 1 or 2, I mean, it's a
It's a waste of time.
right?
It's a waste of time.
It's not. I mean, these guys pan out, but if you're taking number 1 overall, it's because they're ready to come in and be your guy. They're going to be your guy.
Yeah.
Football is not like that. Baseball is just like hockey in a way, drafting to round out your system, drafting to have the prospects in the pipe to get them into developmental leagues, and there it is, Mark.
Yeah,
This
I
isn't
knew
what
I
I
knew
set
it.
out to say, but you have the
I was
developmental
teeing you up.
leagues.
I was teeing
You
you
have
up
the
for this.
developmental leagues. You teed me
Yep.
up without me even knowing it. But with these developmental leagues, it's a much different game, a much different sport, with two-way control and rehab starts. It's different. But with football, what we're here to talk about, it's hit or miss.
Yeah,
At
it
20,
is.
missing at 28 isn't as catastrophic as missing at 8,
Yeah.
but it's boom or bust. There's no developmental. There's no sending them down. Could you imagine a world where a guy that gets drafted at 10 could clear waivers to get to your practice squad to develop? Could
That's
you imagine?
wild.
Could you imagine a world where it would be okay for you as a franchise to try to get somebody like a top 5, 10, 15 pick, top first round pick to get to waivers? It's just never going to happen. There's no developmental league, and it's just the stakes are higher at that point.
Yeah, you're right. No, it is, and there goes your opportunity for a player, right? Like, a buddy of mine's kid is he's a pro hockey player, but he's a step below the AHL right now. But he's a pro hockey player, like
Sure.
full on treated like a pro hockey player.
Sure.
Um,
The
compensated
AHL is a very
well,
lucrative thing. These guys
but
can make money in the AHL.
and dude, they have a life, and he's telling me all about this, and I'm going to myself, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And you're right, football is missing the boat on this, but it would be a completely different game. Can you imagine that? Like, they're essentially trying that with your XFL or whatever it's called right now, UFL. I know they merged them, but I
the
just don't
only
see it.
successful competition to, if you will, for NFL is the AFL, right? The only time that they were able to say, you know what, we don't like what you're doing, we're going to do something different.
We're gonna make a monopoly.
Yeah, it became
Oh, you silly son of a
yeah,
bitch! You're right.
an NFL, right? I mean, you paired it.
Does anyone else see Hitch's face looking like he's...
An extended.
Sorry, your face was frozen on my screen. It looked like we were having your O face.
Oh,
I'm picturing
I don't
that's
know.
exactly what Tracy sees right before she breaks down.
Possibly you would have to ask her, I guess. I've never seen that face myself.
Yeah. All right, we got you unfrozen now. You just had to shake you up a little bit. Hey, are you using your new camera?
No.
Okay.
I'm
Looks extra
rocking
clear.
it old school. Got new mic. I noticed that today. I don't know. I didn't clean it. I didn't do anything. My lighting is a little different, I guess.
I swear, dude, that's what the doctors taught me. Lighting is key. I'm a little glary right now, but I'll play with this shit all day because it can make or break. So whatever you're doing, I like it.
Keep doing it.
I can still see the shakedown. I can still see the dartboard while you're smoking a dart.
Well, let's see here. It's 7:30. We've been doing this for about an hour.
Yeah, I think we're pretty good. I think this
we
is working
touch-
out.
Did we touch on everything?
You know what's funny? I didn't tell you a single thing about the ChatGPT outline that I put together, and yeah, we went right through it. So
Okay. We got to my notes too. It just kind of happened.
yeah,
Not a ton of football content tonight, but that's okay. We were going live. We're testing everything out.
well, there's not
Can't
a lot of
have-
football to talk about,
Right.
and I think
Can't
that's
have
the
a
biggest
Detroit
thing.
Lions or Detroit sports podcast right now without talking baseball, basketball, hockey. I had a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, I mean it kind of bridges the gap in the conversation because you know the worst thing about this is during the off season we've got to get the ball rolling, right? And obviously as we continue to do this as the seasons build, our off seasons we can come up with. I know you want to do the Mount Rushmore ones. You know, I want to do. I cannot wait to do one just on Lions draft picks that we absolutely hate, like nightmare draft picks.
Oh, don't even get me going.
Well, I'm going to. That's going to be the whole point.
Yeah.
It'll be hard cramming that into an hour where we're not
is
just
your-
talking.
Who is your Darko of the Lions, right? Like who is just
Exactly.
that pick that just gets you going?
Right,
Like,
so-
I got two. I got two, but I'll save them for a later date.
And I think this live thing is working where maybe we just every week we do an episode, we hop on like this because it's good to get some interaction. We can still
Yeah.
record, like this is still going to save. I'll still edit it like a normal episode, put all the fancy schmancy shit. But
Sure.
it's good stuff that these guys are talking about. And we can get some ideas too because we got 50 years of losing football that we can talk about.
Oh, we got a lot we can cover, but our off season gets shorter and shorter. It's a good problem
Yeah.
to have. We go
That's
deeper
true.
into the playoffs, our off season gets shorter, but let's maybe next week look at going live and talking about like the best football movies or the worst draft picks or whatever.
Hey, let's stick with that topic because we got to talk about Draft Day, which is your football movie to watch.
It's up there. It's up
So
there.
I think that would actually be a really good idea, and I'll start coming up with some. And hey, what did I just send you? Some pictures of some movie
Yeah.
fan forum logos.
Yeah.
So
Well, with that being said, I hate to cut it short, but my phone has been kind of blowing up, so I got some stuff I got to deal with. But
all is well.
good episode, man.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody who's hopped on, who's commented. I appreciate Hitch's parents for conceiving Hitch and his brother because they just celebrated their 40th birthday.
The big 4-0.
One love and peace.
Peace. All right, are we live?
No, we're not
All right, hold
live
on.
anymore.
Hold on.